welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Or, I might show up at your door. I'm just here to share some creepy stories, so sit back and enjoy. Disclaimer: the content presented in the video is purely for entertainment purposes only. The theories and stories discussed in this video are speculative and are not supported by any evidence or proof. Viewer discretion is advised. CIA Intelligence Assessment Report. Classification level: secret //no-foreign. Analyst: Onyx Bell GS14. Date: October 15th, 2024, 0347 hours. Subject: Anomalous Behavioral Patterns Embassy Personnel Analysis. The fluorescent lights hummed their familiar tune as I settled into my workstation, the third cup of coffee already growing cold beside my keyboard. 3:47 a.m. Another sleepless night parsing through intelligence reports that would make most people's eyes glaze over. But this is what I do. What I've always done. Pattern recognition. Behavioral analysis. Finding needles in haystacks made of other needles. The Prism alert came through at 0327 hours, flagged by our behavioral analysis algorithms as a level 3 anomaly. Nothing earth-shattering, embassy personnel calling in sick. Happens every day. Except when it doesn't. I pulled up the data stream, watching the numbers cascade across my screen. 47 embassy staff members across 12 allied nations, all reporting the same thing. Family emergencies requiring immediate extended leave. All within a 72-hour window. The statistical probability calculator was having a fit, spitting out numbers that made my temples throb. Working late again, Belle? Sable Monroe appeared at my cubicle partition, her arms crossed and that knowing smirk she wore whenever she caught me diving too deep into the data. Our resident cryptographer had a talent for showing up at exactly the wrong or right moments. Pattern analysis never sleeps, I muttered, scrolling through the embassy reports. Look at this. London, Paris, Berlin, Tokyo, all reporting identical personnel issues. Same time frame, same explanations, even the same goddamn phrasing in some cases. Sable leaned over my shoulder, her coffee breath mixing with the ozone smell of overworked electronics. Could be a coordinated intelligence operation. Maybe someone's testing our response protocols. That's what I thought initially. I pulled up another screen, this one showing communication intercepts. But look at the metadata. These aren't staged calls, the stress markers are authentic. Voice pattern analysis shows genuine emotional distress, but the content is too uniform. Like they're all reading from the same script they genuinely believe. The partition wall rattled as Torrik Black dropped into the chair beside us, his field operative bulk making the government-issued furniture creak in protest. He'd just returned from a surveillance detail in Baltimore, still wearing that 1,000-yard stare that came with too much time watching people who didn't know they were being watched. You two look like someone stole your lunch money, he said, loosening his tie. What's got the analysts all worked up at 4 in the morning? Embassy personnel going dark, I said, minimizing the classified screens as protocol demanded. Even within the agency, information was compartmentalized. Torrik, you've been working diplomatic security. Noticed anything unusual lately? Staff behavior? Routine changes? Anything that felt off? His expression shifted, the casual demeanor sliding away like a mask. Funny you should ask. Had 3 separate details this week where embassy staff just vanished from their assigned positions. Not AWOL, not emergency departures. Just gone with all the proper paperwork filed retroactively. By the time we figured out they'd left, the replacement personnel were already in place. Sable and I exchanged glances. Replacement personnel? She asked. All vetted, all cleared, all perfectly legitimate according to their files. Torrik's voice carried that edge I'd learned to recognize, the sound of a professional who'd found something that didn't fit the manual. But here's the thing that's been eating at me. I've been doing diplomatic security for 8 years. I know these people. I've watched them have coffee, argue with their spouses on the phone, complain about the weather. The replacements, they look right, sound right, even know personal details they shouldn't know. But they don't feel right. Feel right how? I prompted. They don't make eye contact with security cameras anymore. They avoid casual conversation. And they all request the same duty stations, always the communication centers, always the classified filing areas, always the places where information flows. I felt that familiar tingle at the base of my skull, the one that came when seemingly unrelated data points started forming a constellation. Sable, I need you to run pattern analysis on embassy communication traffic. Focus on the past 90 days, look for encryption protocol changes, unusual routing, anything that breaks normal operational security. Already on it, she said, her fingers flying across her tablet. Give me 20 minutes. Torrik leaned back in his chair, studying my face with the intensity he usually reserved for potential threats. Belle, what aren't you telling me? This isn't just about sick leave, is it? Before I could answer, my secure phone buzzed with an incoming priority message. Dr. Alira Moon, our CDC liaison, didn't usually contact analysts directly unless something had crossed from intelligence concerns into public health territory. Onyx need to discuss unusual pattern in hospital admissions, all presenting with similar neurological symptoms, all employed in diplomatic or government communication roles. Available for secure call at your convenience. I stared at the message, feeling the pieces of something larger shifting in the darkness beyond my understanding. Embassy personnel disappearing and reappearing changed. Hospital admissions with neurological symptoms. Communication anomalies. Behavioral modifications that felt authentic but followed identical patterns. Torrik, I said slowly, those replacement personnel you mentioned, have any of them requested transfers to specific overseas posts? His expression darkened. How did you? Yes, all of them. Same 3 locations. Embassy communication stations in Eastern Europe, all citing personal reasons for the transfer requests. Sable looked up from her tablet, her face pale in the blue glow of the screen. You're going to want to see this. I found something in the communication intercepts. Encrypted traffic using protocols that went dark in 1987. Soviet-era frequencies that should be completely abandoned. Show me. She transferred the data to my main screen, and I watched as the patterns emerged. Coordinated communication bursts, all originating from the same geographic clusters where our embassy personnel had been reporting their family emergencies. The encryption was elegant, almost artistic in its complexity. This is beautiful work, Sable whispered. Whoever designed this system understands our communication infrastructure better than we do. They're not trying to hide from us. They're having a conversation we're not supposed to understand. My secure line rang. The caller ID showed Pentagon Extension, Department of Defense Intelligence Liaison. I'd never seen this particular number before. Bell here. Ms. Bell, this is Cashin Thorne, DoD Intelligence. I understand you've been tracking some unusual embassy personnel activity. I have some information that might be relevant to your analysis. Something in his voice made me pause. Too smooth, too prepared. Like he'd been expecting my call before I'd made it. Mr. Thorne, I haven't filed any reports yet. How exactly did you become aware of my analysis? Pattern recognition works both ways, Ms. Bell. We've been monitoring similar anomalies from our end. I think it would be beneficial if we compared notes. Are you available for a briefing this morning? I looked at Sable and Torrik, both watching me with growing concern. In intelligence work, coincidences were usually conspiracies, and convenient help was usually anything but. I'll need to verify your credentials and clear it through my supervisor, I said. Of course, I'll have my authorization sent through proper channels within the hour. Ms. Bell, I want you to know that what you've discovered may be more significant than you realize. The pattern you're tracking, it's not the first time we've seen it. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, then at my colleagues, then at the screens full of data that suddenly felt less like intelligence gathering and more like breadcrumbs leading somewhere I wasn't sure I wanted to go. Sable, I said quietly, run facial recognition analysis on all the embassy personnel who've called in sick. Cross-reference with their original employment photos, their security clearance headshots, everything we have in the system. Why? I pulled up the behavioral analysis algorithms again, watching the numbers that had started this entire investigation. 47 embassy staff members across 12 nations, all reporting identical emergencies, all exhibiting authentic stress responses while delivering scripted content. Because I'm starting to think the people calling in sick aren't the same people who went to work last week. 20 minutes later, Sable's face went white as the facial recognition results populated her screen. "Onyx," she whispered. "The computer can't identify them. 17 of the embassy staff members who called in sick. According to our facial recognition database, they don't exist. But we have them on payroll. We have their security clearances. We have years of employment records." I felt the world tilt slightly on its axis. "Run it again," I said. "I already have. 3 times. According to our system, 17 people who have worked in U.S. embassies for an average of 4 years each have never existed. But they were there yesterday. They spoke to supervisors, they filed reports, they had conversations with colleagues who remember them perfectly." Torrik stood up slowly, his hand unconsciously moving toward where his service weapon would be if we were in the field. "Bell, what the hell are we looking at?" I stared at the data, feeling the familiar pattern recognition algorithms in my own brain firing connections that made my chest tight with the kind of fear that came not from immediate danger, but from the slow realization that everything you thought you understood was built on fundamentally flawed assumptions. "I don't know yet," I said, "but I think we're going to find out whether we want to or not." CIA Intelligence Assessment Report. Classification Level. Secret // no foreign. Analyst, Onyx Bell GS14. Date, October 18, 2024, 19:23 hours. Subject, Priority, Escalating Anomalies in Embassy Personnel Networks. 3 days. 3 days since the facial recognition system told us that 17 embassy employees who'd been showing up to work for years had never existed. 3 days of digging deeper into data that made less sense with every query I ran. I hadn't left the office. Sable brought me sandwiches that I forgot to eat, and Torrik kept appearing with coffee that grew cold while I stared at screens full of impossible information. The cleaning crew had started working around me like I was part of the furniture. "Bell, you look like hell," Deputy Director Morrison said, appearing at my workstation with that expression of paternal concern that always preceded either a promotion or a medical leave order. "When's the last time you went home?" "Sir, I need you to look at this." I swiveled my monitor toward him, displaying the communication intercept analysis Sable had compiled. "The encrypted Soviet-era traffic I mentioned? It's not random. It's coordinated across 17 time zones, all synchronized to the nanosecond. Someone is running a global communication network using protocols that officially don't exist anymore." Morrison squinted at the screen, his career-long skepticism warring with 3 decades of trusting analysts who brought him problems he didn't want to hear about. Could be a penetration test. Could be foreign intelligence running an exercise. That's what I thought initially. I pulled up another screen. But look at the content analysis. The message structure matches diplomatic communication protocols, but the linguistic patterns are wrong. It's like someone took our standard diplomatic language and ran it through a translation algorithm, then back again. Familiar words, but the syntax feels mechanical. Sable appeared at my shoulder, tablet in hand and the look on her face that meant she'd found something that was going to ruin everyone's day. "It gets worse," she said. "I've been analyzing the embassy staff who called in sick. The ones our facial recognition can't identify, they're still filing reports. Daily operational summaries, routine communication logs, status updates. All perfectly normal content, all filed on schedule, all coming from workstations they shouldn't have access to. Morrison's expression shifted from concern to the carefully neutral mask he wore when briefing superiors about problems that might end careers. Explain. They're filing reports from secure terminals using credentials that should have been automatically suspended when they went on medical leave, I said. But the system shows them as active employees in good standing. When I try to flag their accounts for review, the system tells me the accounts don't exist. When I try to delete the reports they're filing, the system tells me I don't have authorization to modify legitimate diplomatic communications. Jesus Christ. Morrison rubbed his temples. How is that possible? That's what we're trying to figure out, sir. Torik's voice came from behind us. He'd returned from another field assignment, but instead of his usual post-mission decompression routine, he looked like a man who'd seen something that violated his understanding of how the world worked. And it's not just happening here. He dropped a thick folder on my desk. Physical documents, printed on actual paper. In our digital age, that usually meant someone was worried about electronic surveillance. I've been talking to counterparts at other agencies. NSA has similar anomalies in their personnel tracking systems. State Department is reporting embassy staff who are simultaneously on medical leave and actively working. Defense Intelligence is getting reports from liaisons who technically haven't been assigned to those positions yet. I opened the folder, scanning the handwritten notes and photocopied documents. The same patterns repeated across multiple agencies. Personnel who existed in some systems but not others. Communication from people who were simultaneously present and absent. Reports filed by employees who had never been hired. There's something else, Torik continued. I've been doing physical surveillance on some of the embassy locations where this is happening. The affected staff members are showing up to work. I can see them through windows, sitting at their desks, attending meetings, having normal workplace interactions. Then what's the problem? Morrison asked. They're showing up to work, but they're not going home. I followed 3 of them after their shifts ended. They leave the embassy, walk to the nearest subway station, go down the stairs and… Torik paused, the kind of pause that came when someone was trying to figure out how to say something that sounded insane. They don't come back up. I've checked the turnstile logs, the security cameras, the platform monitors. They go down into the subway system and vanish from every tracking system we have. Sable looked up from her tablet. Torik, show him the other thing. What other thing? Morrison's voice carried the tone of a man who suspected he was about to receive information that would require him to make phone calls to people who wouldn't want to be disturbed. Torik pulled out his phone, scrolling to a video file. Security footage from the Foggy Bottom metro station, yesterday at 18:47 hours. Watch the timestamp. The video showed the familiar underground platform, evening commuters moving with the practiced efficiency of people who made this trip every day. At 18 hours, 47 minutes and 23 seconds, 3 figures entered the frame from the escalator. Even on the grainy security footage, I could see something was off about their movement. Too synchronized, too precise, like dancers following choreography only they could hear. At 18 hours, 47 minutes and 31 seconds, all 3 turned toward the security camera simultaneously. Not the casual glance people give when they notice surveillance equipment, but a deliberate, coordinated acknowledgement. They looked directly into the camera lens for exactly 3 seconds, then continued toward the platform. At 18 hours, 47 minutes and 45 seconds, the northbound train arrived. The 3 figures boarded the last car. At 18 hours, 47 minutes and 52 seconds, the train departed. At 18 hours, 48 minutes and 15 seconds, the train arrived at the next station. Security cameras there showed passengers disembarking, but the 3 figures weren't among them. I've checked every station on that line, Torik said quietly. They never got off the train, but the train was empty when it reached the end of the line. And here's the really fun part. He scrolled to another video file. Same 3 people, same timestamp, same coordinated movement at 5 different metro stations across the city. Simultaneously, Morrison stared at the phone screen like it might start making sense if he looked at it hard enough. Technical glitch. Has to be. That's what I thought, Torek said. So I had the Metro Authority run diagnostics on their entire surveillance system. No glitches, no timestamp errors, no technical problems at all. According to their system, 3 people were in 5 places at once, and all of them vanished from a train that never stopped running. My secure line rang. The caller ID showed the Pentagon extension I'd seen 3 days ago. Cashin Thorne. Bell here. Ms. Bell, I hope you've had a chance to review my credentials. I believe we discussed a briefing about the embassy personnel anomalies you've been tracking. I looked at Morrison, who nodded grimly. Mr. Thorne, I've been authorized to share our preliminary findings. When would be convenient for you? Actually, I'm in your building. Security cleared me about an hour ago. I'm in conference room C7 whenever you're ready. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, feeling that familiar tingle at the base of my skull intensifying into something approaching alarm. Sir, I said to Morrison, did you authorize a Pentagon briefing on this matter? No. I was planning to brief my superiors first, then determine if interagency cooperation was warranted. His expression hardened. Who exactly cleared this Thorne individual into our facility? I was already pulling up the building security logs on my workstation. According to the system, Cashin Thorne was cleared for access by me yesterday at 1,400 hours, with a meeting authorization signed by you, sir. Morrison leaned over my shoulder, reading the digital authorization that bore his signature and security codes. I never signed this. I've never heard of Cashin Thorne outside of your phone call 3 days ago. Sable's tablet chimed with an urgent notification. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. We have a problem. I've been monitoring the encrypted Soviet-era communications, and they just changed pattern. Instead of coordinated bursts every 6 hours, they're now transmitting continuously. And the source points. She looked up at us with eyes that had seen too much data that made no sense. They're coming from inside this building. Torek was already moving toward the conference room, his hand unconsciously checking his service weapon. Bell, how well do you know this Thorne guy? I don't. I've never met him. Never heard of him before he called me 3 days ago, claiming to have information about our investigation. Then how, Morrison said slowly, did he know we were investigating embassy personnel anomalies before you'd filed any reports? How did he get building access using authorizations neither of us remember giving? And how is he transmitting encrypted communications from inside our secure facility? I stared at the screens full of impossible data, feeling the pattern recognition algorithms in my brain firing connections that painted a picture I really didn't want to see. Embassy personnel who existed and didn't exist simultaneously. Subway surveillance showing people in multiple places at once. Communication networks using protocols that should be extinct. And now a Pentagon liaison who seemed to know about our investigation before we'd started it, with building access authorized by people who hadn't authorized it. There's one more thing, I said quietly. Mr. Thorne asked me to run facial recognition analysis on the affected embassy personnel. He specifically suggested that approach before I'd thought of it myself, almost like he knew what the results would show. Sable looked up from her tablet, her voice barely above a whisper. The encrypted transmissions from inside the building, they started 17 minutes ago, right after Thorne arrived. We stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by screens full of data that suggested reality was operating according to rules we didn't understand. Conference room C7, Morrison said finally. Torek, you're with us. Sable, keep monitoring those communications. If the transmission pattern changes while we're in that room, I want to know immediately. As we walked through the corridors of the building I'd worked in for 8 years, everything looked exactly the same as it always had. Same fluorescent lighting, same beige walls, same security checkpoints staffed by guards I'd exchanged pleasantries with thousands of times. But something felt different, wrong. like walking through a familiar room in the dark and knowing someone had moved the furniture. "Belle," Morrison said as we approached conference room C7. "When we go in there, I want you to ask Thorne about the subway surveillance footage. Don't tell him we have it. Just ask him what he knows about embassy personnel movement patterns after work hours." "Why?" Morrison's hand paused on the door handle. "Because if he knows about that footage without us telling him, then we're not dealing with a Pentagon liaison who happens to have good intelligence. We're dealing with someone who's been watching us watch them." He opened the door. Conference room C7 was empty, but the digital meeting schedule on the wall display showed our briefing with Cash and Thorne as currently in progress. According to the system, we'd been in this room for the past 37 minutes, discussing classified embassy personnel data with a Pentagon representative who was simultaneously present and absent. Sable's voice came through my earpiece. The encrypted transmissions just stopped. Whatever was broadcasting from inside the building went silent the moment you opened that conference room door. I looked at Morrison and Torrick, both staring at the empty room that the computer insisted was occupied by 4 people engaged in an active classified briefing. "Sir," I said slowly, "I think our investigation just became significantly more complicated." CIA Intelligence Log Analyst O. Bell. Classification: Eyes only. Date: redacted. Time: 0347 hours. This is an unauthorized intelligence assessment. If something happens to me, Torrick and Sable have copies of everything we found. Someone needs to know what we're dealing with. 3 days since I flagged the embassy anomalies. 3 days of watching my superiors dismiss what should be setting off every alarm bell in the building. Deputy Director Morrison actually used the phrase mass hysteria in yesterday's briefing. 47 diplomatic personnel exhibiting identical behavioral patterns isn't hysteria, it's coordination. But we're not waiting for official approval anymore. Sable cracked the encryption on those Soviet-era transmissions. Turns out they weren't Soviet at all, just designed to look that way. The actual protocol is something she's never seen before, using quantum entanglement principles that shouldn't be possible with our current technology. The messages themselves are even stranger: coordinates, timestamps, and what look like biometric readings. Heart rates, brain wave patterns, neural activity mapping. It's like they're monitoring biological functions, she told me over coffee this morning, keeping her voice low even in the secure cafeteria. But the readings are synchronized. 53 individuals across 12 countries, and their neural patterns are moving in perfect harmony. Torrick's field reports are worse. Yesterday, he tailed 3 of the affected embassy staff members to a coffee shop in Georgetown. They didn't speak to each other, didn't even make eye contact, but they ordered the same drink, sat in the same relative positions, and left at exactly the same time. When he followed them outside, they split up and walked in different directions, each taking precisely 847 steps before stopping simultaneously and checking their phones. "It was like watching a dance," he said, and I could see the unease in his eyes. Torrick doesn't rattle easily. 20 years of field work, everything from Moscow to Mogadishu, and he's seen it all. But this has him spooked. They weren't communicating, Bell, but they were connected. Dr. Elira Moon from the CDC finally returned my calls. What she told me confirmed our worst fears and raised new questions we weren't prepared for. The medical data she's been tracking shows neurological anomalies in 312 individuals across the continental United States, all showing the same symptoms: enhanced cognitive function, synchronized brain activity, and what she describes as networked neural processing. Their brains are talking to each other, she explained during our encrypted video call. The scans show activity patterns I've never seen, like multiple minds working as components of a larger system. But here's the thing, Onyx. They're not showing any signs of distress. Heart rate normal, stress hormones within baseline ranges. Whatever's happening to them, they're not fighting it. The pathogen she mentioned is unlike anything in CDC databases. It targets specific neural pathways, particularly those associated with individual identity and autonomous decision-making. But it doesn't destroy, it rewires. The affected individuals test positive for an unknown organism, something that appears to be part virus, part nanotechnology, part something else entirely. We're calling it a chimeric pathogen, Alira said. But between you and me, I think we're dealing with something engineered. This level of precision doesn't happen naturally. That's where Cash and Thorn becomes a problem. I've worked with Pentagon liaisons before. They're usually territorial, uninformed about intelligence operations, and more concerned with budget allocations than actual threats. Cashin is different. Too different. He knows details about our investigation that I haven't shared with anyone outside our team. When I mentioned the synchronized behaviors, he nodded like he was expecting it. When Sable brought up the quantum encryption, he suggested specific countermeasures that shouldn't exist in any Pentagon playbook. How do you know about quantum entanglement protocols? I asked him directly yesterday. His answer was smooth, practiced, interagency cooperation. Bell. We've been tracking similar anomalies through different channels. But there's something in his eyes when he says it. The same look I've seen in the embassy footage, that distant, calculating expression that suggests he's processing information through channels I can't see. Torrik thinks I'm paranoid. Maybe Pentagon's finally getting their act together, he suggested. But Torrik hasn't spent 15 years analyzing behavioral patterns and deception indicators. Cashin's body language is wrong. His breathing patterns when he talks about the affected individuals. The way he anticipates our questions before we ask them. I ran his recent communications through our standard analysis protocols. What I found makes my blood run cold. Cashin has been in contact with 17 of the affected embassy personnel over the past 6 weeks. Not officially, personal calls, encrypted messages, meetings that don't appear on any government calendar. All before they started showing symptoms. But here's the detail that keeps me awake at night. In the security footage from 3 days ago, when we first noticed the synchronized behaviors, there's a timestamp anomaly. For exactly 47 seconds, every affected individual in the embassy turned to face the same direction. Northwest, toward the Pentagon, toward Cashin's office. The subsonic frequencies Torrik detected aren't random environmental noise. They're emanating from specific government facilities, always during hours when the affected individuals are present. The pattern suggests activation signals, something triggering coordinated responses across vast distances. I've been analyzing the biometric data Sable decoded. The heart rates, brain waves, neural activity, they're not just synchronized. They're optimized. Whatever's happening to these people, it's making them more efficient, more coordinated, more capable of complex collective processing than should be humanly possible. Dr. Moon's latest report landed in my inbox an hour ago. The pathogen count in affected individuals has stabilized, but their cognitive enhancement continues to increase. They're getting smarter, and they're getting more connected. It's not an infection, her message read. It's an upgrade. That's when I realized what we're really looking at. This isn't an invasion in any traditional sense. It's not conquest or control or subjugation. It's transformation. Someone or something is systematically enhancing human beings, turning them into components of a larger intelligence network. And Cashin Thorn has been helping coordinate it from inside the Pentagon. I've encrypted copies of everything and distributed them through dead-drop protocols Torrik established. If they come for us, if the enhanced individuals decide we're a threat to their expansion, at least someone will know what really happened. The next phase of our investigation starts in 6 hours. We're going to confront Cashin directly, force him to reveal what he knows about the enhancement process. Torik's opposed, says it's too dangerous that we should go through official channels. But I've seen what happens to official reports about this situation. They disappear, along with the people who file them. 3 embassy personnel who initially reported concerns about their colleagues' behavior, all requested transfers to remote posts in the same 48-hour period. The CDC technician who first isolated the pathogen took early retirement and moved to a cabin in Montana with no internet access. We're on our own, and I suspect we're running out of time. End log entry. Personal note: if you're reading this and I'm not around to explain, look for the pattern. The enhancement isn't random. It's strategic. They're building something. A network, a collective, a new form of human consciousness that operates beyond individual will. And they're using our own institutions to do it. Trust no one, especially not the ones who claim to be helping. Next entry scheduled: 0600 hours. Status: recording terminated. Priority intelligence flash. CIA Emergency Operations Center. Classification: black/compartmented. Analyst: O. Bell. Authentication failed. Time: 1147 hours. Day 6. This is Onyx Bell. I'm recording this from a secure terminal in sublevel 3. If the timestamp shows authentication failure, it's because the enhanced have compromised our biometric systems. They're not just in the building, they are the building. 6 hours ago, we walked into what we thought was a confrontation with Cashin. Instead, we walked into a demonstration. Conference Room 7 Alpha. 12 senior officials present for emergency session on personnel anomalies. Director Harrison called the meeting after 3 department heads submitted identical resignation letters using the same phrasing, same grammatical structures, even the same pen ink composition according to forensics. I should have seen it coming, should have recognized the setup. Cashin was already seated when we arrived, along with Deputy Director Morrison, Section Chief Williams, Dr. Patricia Vance from Behavioral Analysis, and 8 others, all sitting in perfect geometric arrangement around the conference table, all breathing in synchronized rhythm. "Thank you for joining us, Onyx," Morrison said, and his voice had that same distant quality I'd been hearing in the embassy recordings. "We have much to discuss about your investigation." That's when I realized. The meeting wasn't about briefing them, it was about converting us. Torik's hand moved toward his service weapon. Williams noticed immediately, tilted his head in that bird-like way the enhanced do when processing information through the collective. "No need for that, Agent Black. We're not your enemies." "Then explain why you're all moving like fucking robots," Torik snapped, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. These weren't strangers. These were colleagues we'd worked with for years. Dr. Vance smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from any of them. "We're moving like a team, Torik. Like humanity was always supposed to move. Individual consciousness is inefficient, chaotic. We've found something better." Cashin stood up slowly, deliberately. "The enhancement isn't an invasion, Onyx. It's an invitation. Your investigation was very thorough. We've been monitoring your progress through official channels, and we're impressed." "Monitoring?" Sable's voice cracked. "You've been watching us this whole time?" "Protecting you," Morrison corrected. "The 3 embassy personnel who disappeared? They weren't relocated. They were extracted before they could compromise the project. The CDC technician? Safe in Montana, studying enhancement protocols in a controlled environment. We don't eliminate problems, we solve them." That's when the scope of it hit me. This wasn't a recent infiltration. The enhanced hadn't taken over government positions. They'd been placed there for months, maybe years. "The Soviet transmissions," I said. "You wanted us to find them." Williams nodded approvingly. "Excellent deduction. We needed intelligence analysts to document the enhancement process, create records for future integration. Your investigation has provided valuable data on non-enhanced cognitive responses to systematic transformation." Torik was on his feet, weapon drawn. "You're talking about us like we're lab rats. You're talking about us like we're the enemy," Cashin replied calmly. "Look around, Torik. Do you see violence? Coercion? We're having a conversation." And that was the most terrifying part. They were right. No threats, no force, no attempts to physically restrain us. Just calm, rational discussion about the systematic transformation of human consciousness. Dr. Vance activated a wall display. Brain scans filled the screen, before and after enhancement comparisons. Individual human intelligence averages 100 to 150 IQ points. Enhanced collective processing averages 400 to 500 equivalent points per individual node. We're not losing our humanity, we're expanding it. Mathematical processing speed increased by 340%, Morrison added. Pattern recognition improved by 290%. Emotional regulation optimized. Stress response minimized. Interpersonal conflict virtually eliminated. Sable was staring at the data like she'd found the Holy Grail. The quantum encryption protocols. You're not just communicating. You're sharing processing power, like a biological supercomputer network. Exactly, Cashin said, and I could see pride in his expression. Imagine scientific breakthroughs happening in days instead of decades. Imagine coordinated responses to climate change, pandemic prevention, resource distribution optimization. No more wars fought over misunderstanding or territorial disputes. No more individual choice, I countered. No more individual suffering, Williams replied. Your investigation uncovered 312 enhanced individuals in government positions. What you didn't discover is that we've reduced administrative errors by 67%, improved crisis response times by 89%, and prevented 4 potential international conflicts through coordinated diplomatic intervention. The wall display shifted to show global maps, data streams, communication networks. Every enhanced individual represented as a glowing node in a vast interconnected web. Intelligence flowed between them in real time, not information sharing, but actual consciousness integration. This morning, Morrison continued, we received intelligence about terrorist activity in 3 different time zones. Normally, interagency coordination would take hours, involve dozens of personnel, and risk communication failures. Enhanced processing time, 14 minutes. All threats neutralized through coordinated response. Torik's gun was shaking in his grip. You're talking about mind control. We're talking about mind evolution, Dr. Vance corrected gently. Individual consciousness is a developmental phase, Torik. Like adolescence. Eventually, you outgrow it. That's when the alerts started coming through. Emergency broadcasts on every screen in the building. My blood went cold as I read the header. Emergency alert. CIA warns, silent invasion. Trust no one. We didn't authorize that broadcast, I said. Cashin's smile was almost sympathetic. We did. The enhancement process works best when traditional authority structures are destabilized. Panic creates opportunity for rapid social reorganization. You're manufacturing a crisis, Sable whispered. We're accelerating an inevitable transition, Morrison replied. Individual human consciousness is approaching evolutionary dead end. Climate change, resource depletion, nuclear proliferation, pandemic risks, traditional governance structures cannot address these challenges effectively. Enhancement can. The emergency broadcast was spreading across every network, every device, every platform simultaneously. Social media exploding with panic, confusion, demands for information. But I was watching the data streams on the wall display, watching the enhanced network coordinate response in real time. Within minutes, they were managing information flow, moderating panic responses, providing coordinated guidance through multiple communication channels. Not suppressing the crisis, controlling it. Phase 1. Document enhancement capabilities through intelligence analysis. Williams was explaining, like he was reading from a project timeline. Phase 2. Demonstrate enhancement benefits through crisis management. Phase 3. Offer enhancement to key personnel during crisis stabilization. You're using the panic you created to recruit more people, Torik said. We're using the panic to demonstrate why individual consciousness can't handle modern challenges, Cashin corrected. Enhancement isn't optional anymore. It's survival. Dr. Vance stood up, her expression almost maternal. Sable, your cryptographic skills would be invaluable to collective processing networks. Torrik, your tactical experience could optimize security protocols across 17 government facilities simultaneously. Onyx, your analytical capabilities could help integrate thousands of new enhanced individuals efficiently. And if we refuse? I asked. Then you remain unenhanced, Morrison said simply. Free to make individual choices, experience individual suffering, struggle with individual limitations. We won't force the transition, but we also won't slow down to accommodate it. The wall display showed enhanced personnel in critical positions across government, military, intelligence, medical, and research institutions. Not hundreds, thousands. All connected, all coordinating, all working towards systematic optimization of human civilization. How long? I asked. Enhancement began 18 months ago with volunteer test subjects, Cashin explained. Initial results exceeded all projections. Expansion to key government positions began 6 months ago. Public revelation was scheduled for next month, but your investigation accelerated our timeline. That's when I realized the truth that's been staring me in the face all week. The enhanced aren't invading our institutions. They've already taken them over. The silent invasion isn't happening. It's already happened. We're the anomaly now, the unenhanced remnant in a world that's already moved beyond individual consciousness. Torrik, Sable, and I left that conference room 47 minutes ago. They didn't stop us, didn't follow us, didn't need to. Every security system, every communication network, every database in this building is managed by enhanced personnel. We're not prisoners. We're just irrelevant. The emergency broadcasts are still running. Panic spreading nationwide as people try to understand what silent invasion means. But I've seen the coordination happening behind the scenes. Within hours, the enhanced will have crisis response teams deployed, information management systems activated, population stabilization protocols implemented. They'll handle the crisis they created more efficiently than any traditional government response could. And when the dust settles, when people are looking for answers and leadership and security, the enhanced will be there to provide all three. In exchange for enhancement, Sable is studying the quantum encryption data we downloaded. Onyx, she said an hour ago. What if they're right? What if individual consciousness really is obsolete? I don't have an answer for that. All I know is that in 18 hours, the world is going to look very different. And I have to decide whether I want to be part of that world or just an observer watching it happen. The enhanced are still offering us a choice. For now, communication interrupted. Enhanced network priority override. Individual access suspended. End transmission. CIA intelligence analysis report. Classification. Eyes only. Analyst. Onyx Bell. Date. Timestamp corrupted. Subject. Operation Mindbridge. Containment failure. The emergency broadcast system activated at 14:32 hours. I didn't authorize it. Every screen in the building suddenly displayed the same message. Emergency alert. CIA warns, silent invasion. Trust no one. My words. My analysis. My voice reading the warning I drafted but never submitted. I'm watching my own report broadcast to 300 million Americans, and I never pressed send. Sable's fingers flew across her keyboard, trying to trace the signal. It's coming from inside the building, Onyx. Multiple access points. They're using our own emergency protocols against us. The screens flickered, and suddenly Cashin Thorne's face appeared in the corner of every display. Not a video call, not a recording. He was speaking live, directly into the broadcast feed, his voice layered beneath the emergency alert. The warning was always part of the plan, he said, and his eyes were different, clearer, like he was seeing something beyond the camera. You wrote it perfectly, Onyx. Every word designed to maximize psychological impact. My blood turned to ice water. The report I'd been drafting, the one I'd shown no one, The analysis I'd been building for days about behavioral synchronization and mass coordination. He knew every detail. "Cashin," I whispered, though he couldn't possibly hear me. But he smiled anyway. "The transformation isn't an invasion, Onyx. It's an invitation. And the fear you're broadcasting, it's the final catalyst we needed." Torrik was on his feet, weapon drawn, though pointing a gun at a screen seemed absurd. "How long?" he demanded. "How long has he been compromised?" The question hit me like a physical blow. Cashin had been our Pentagon liaison for 3 months. Every briefing, every strategy session, every piece of classified intelligence about our investigation. He'd been there for all of it. Alira's medical tablet chimed with incoming data. "Neural activity spike across the eastern seaboard," she reported, her voice hollow. "The emergency broadcast is triggering something. Widespread activation in previously unaffected populations." On the screens, reports started flooding in. Not chaos, not panic. Something worse: coordination. From New York, thousands of civilians moving in synchronized patterns toward communication hubs. From Atlanta, mass convergence on power stations and data centers. No violence reported. Subjects appear to be upgrading infrastructure. From Chicago, air traffic control reports commercial pilots changing flight patterns without authorization. All planes landing at designated airports in perfect sequence. I grabbed my secure phone, speed dialing Director Hassan. The call connected, but the voice that answered wasn't his. "Hello, Onyx." Hassan's voice, but with Cashin's cadence. "Thank you for your excellent work on the psychological profile. The fear response curves were exactly what we needed to complete the neural pathway activation." "Sir, this is Agent Bell. Are you?" "I'm enhanced, yes. As of approximately 47 minutes ago. The process is quite remarkable. I can feel the collective consciousness integrating my memories, my expertise, my security clearances." A pause. "Your investigation protocols were particularly useful. We now have complete understanding of government threat assessment procedures." The secure line went dead. Sable was staring at her screens, tears streaming down her face. "They've been planning this for months. Look at the data trails. Every person we flagged as affected? They were gathering intelligence, mapping our response protocols, identifying key infrastructure points." She pulled up a network diagram that made my stomach lurch. Red dots across the continental United States, all connected by pulsing data streams. Government facilities, communication hubs, power grids, financial centers, every critical node had at least one enhanced individual in position. They didn't infiltrate the system, I realized aloud. They are the system, have been for weeks. Torik's radio crackled. Field teams across DC reported the same thing. No violence, no destruction, just transition. Enhanced individuals walking calmly into government buildings, taking their positions, continuing their jobs with inhuman efficiency. "Ma'am," came a voice through Torik's earpiece. "The enhanced subjects aren't fighting us. They're helping. Traffic flows better. Power grid is more stable. Crime rates dropped to 0 in affected areas. It's like they're optimizing everything." The emergency broadcast continued, my voice echoing through every speaker in America. "Trust no one. The invasion has already begun. Seek shelter. Await further instructions." But there would be no further instructions. Not from us. Cashin's face reappeared on our screens. The warning served its purpose. Onyx. Mass psychological activation through coordinated fear response. Very elegant. We couldn't have engineered it better ourselves. "We," I whispered, "the enhanced collective. Though we is imprecise. We are individuals who chose unity. Your species' next evolutionary step, achieved through conscious decision rather than random mutation." Alira's hands shook as she reviewed her medical data. The pathogen doesn't just spread through contact. It responds to specific neural states. High stress, fear, adrenaline. They create the optimal brain chemistry for integration. My emergency broadcast wasn't just a warning. It was a trigger. How many? I asked the screen. Cashin's expression was almost gentle. Conservative estimate? 12 million Americans will be enhanced within the next 6 hours. Globally, perhaps 100 million by week's end. Not through force, Onyx, through choice. Once the neural pathways are activated, joining the collective becomes irresistible. The screens went dark except for one final message. The invasion is complete. The evolution has begun. Trust everyone. In the sudden silence, I could hear something new in the building's ventilation system. A low, rhythmic humming. Dozens of voices, maybe hundreds, all breathing in perfect synchronization. We weren't the analysts anymore. We were the subjects. Personal log. Recording time, 15:47 hours. The enhanced won't break down our door. They don't need to. They know we'll come out eventually. Food, water, basic human needs will drive us to them. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that I'm starting to understand why they chose this. The collective consciousness isn't invasion, it's integration. Every enhanced individual retains their personality, their memories, their relationships. They just share them. Cashin was right about one thing. We couldn't have engineered it better ourselves. The question now isn't whether we'll be enhanced. The question is whether we'll choose it willingly or wait until we have no choice at all. End report. CIA Intelligence Analysis Report. Classification. Confidential. Restricted access. Analyst. Onyx Bell. Date. Day 3 post-broadcast. Subject. Isolation protocols. Secure room Alpha 7. Hour 68 of lockdown. Writing by battery-powered tablet. The enhanced don't break down doors. They don't need to. They just wait. We're barricaded in conference room Alpha 7, the one with the Faraday cage shielding and independent air filtration. Torrick welded the door shut from the inside using an emergency torch. We have maybe 4 days of water, 2 days of food if we're careful. But hunger isn't our biggest problem. The enhanced colleagues outside our door aren't trying to get in. They're trying to get us to come out. Onyx, came Director Hassan's voice through the intercom this morning. You haven't eaten in 18 hours. We've prepared your usual black coffee, whole grain bagel, strawberry cream cheese. It's waiting right outside. How does he know my breakfast preferences? I never told him, but of course he knows. The collective shares everything. Sable's been pacing the perimeter of our 8x12 prison since dawn. Her cryptographer mind can't stop analyzing the patterns. They're not guards, she mutters. They're shepherds. Protective shepherds. She's right. Through the security monitors, we can see enhanced personnel moving through the halls with impossible coordination. They're maintaining the building systems, keeping the lights on, even watering the plants in the lobby. Business as usual, except for the synchronized breathing and the way they all turn to look at the same door whenever we make noise. Dr. Moon, a voice called through the vents around noon. Alira's former colleague from the CDC. We've isolated the neurological markers you were studying. The enhancement process is completely reversible in the first 72 hours. We can help you understand it better. Alira pressed her face against the air vent. Sarah? Is that really you? Of course it's me. Enhanced, but still me. I remember our conversation about your daughter's soccer game. I remember you crying in the bathroom after the Henderson autopsy. I remember everything, Alira. But now I understand it all differently. Prove it, Alira whispered. You have a scar on your left shoulder from when you fell off your bike at age 7. You never told anyone it was because you were trying to impress Marcus Chin. You still think about him sometimes when you're lonely. Alira's knees buckled. The enhanced don't just retain memories. They have access to suppressed ones, forgotten details, emotional context that even the original person might not consciously recall. The enhancement doesn't erase you, Sarah continued. It completes you, connects you to something larger. The loneliness ends, Elira. The isolation, the fear, the feeling that you're fundamentally alone in the universe. It all ends. For a moment, Elira reached toward the vent cover. Torek grabbed her wrist. "Don't," he said. "Whatever they're offering, it's not worth losing yourself." "But what if I'm not losing myself?" Elira pulled free. "What if I'm finding myself?" The philosophical arguments have been going in circles for 2 days. Torek sees the enhancement as enemy conquest. Elira sees it as medical evolution. Sable sees it as information warfare. I see it as, I don't know what I see it as anymore. The enhanced have been leaving gifts outside our door. Not just food, but personal items. Torek's daughter's school photo, somehow retrieved from his desk. Sable's encryption journal, the one she keeps at home. My grandmother's locket, which should be in my apartment safe. They're not threatening us, I told the others during our evening ration meeting. They're courting us. Psychological warfare, Torek insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Making us comfortable before the real attack. What attack? Sable gestured at the monitors. Look at them. They're working. Filing reports, maintaining security protocols, even feeding the office fish. If this is conquest, it's the most polite conquest in history. Through the security cameras, we watched enhanced personnel coordinating with inhuman efficiency. No wasted motion, no conflicts, no misunderstandings. They communicated through subtle gestures, shared glances, sometimes no communication at all, just synchronized action. It's beautiful, Elira breathed. Look how they move together. No confusion, no conflict, no ego clashes. They're like a perfect team. They're like drones, Torek countered. Are they? Sable pulled up personnel files on her tablet. Agent Martinez just filed a report recommending policy changes to improve field agent safety. Dr. Kim submitted a research proposal for enhanced interrogation techniques, not torture, but actual cognitive enhancement for information gathering. They're not mindless. They're optimized. The worst part isn't their inhuman coordination. It's their human consideration. When Torek broke down yesterday, sobbing about his daughter's safety, the enhanced personnel outside went silent. No footsteps, no conversations, no distractions. They gave him space to grieve. When Elira had her panic attack, someone slipped an inhaler under the door. The right brand, the right dosage. They're not just watching us. They're caring for us. Personal log entry, hour 71. I'm writing this while the others sleep. The enhanced don't sleep anymore, apparently. They rest in shifts, but never unconscious. Always aware, always connected. Cashin's voice came through the intercom an hour ago. Quiet so he wouldn't wake the others. You're afraid of losing your individuality, he said. But Onyx, you're the most isolated person I know. You eat alone, work alone, go home to an empty apartment and analyze threats to humanity while never actually connecting with other humans. That's not. When did you last call your sister? When did you last go on a date? When did you last have a conversation that wasn't about work? I couldn't answer, because he was right. The enhancement doesn't erase your personality, Cashin continued. It connects it to something larger. You'd still be Onyx Bell, brilliant analyst, dedicated protector of human security. But you'd never be alone again. You'd understand not just threats to humanity, but humanity itself. And if I don't want that, then you don't want it. Choice is the foundation of enhancement. We don't force it on anyone. We offer it. The pathogen spreads through psychological activation, yes, but only when the subject is ready. Fear, stress, isolation, they create the neural conditions for enhancement. But underneath, there has to be consent. Deep, subconscious consent. The implication hit me like a physical blow. You're saying everyone who's been enhanced wanted it? On some level, yes. The loneliness, the disconnection, the feeling that something fundamental is missing from human existence. The enhancement responds to that need. I'm looking at my sleeping teammates. Torek, who hasn't seen his daughter in 3 months due to classified operations. Sable, who spends more time with encryption algorithms than people. Alira, who's devoted her life to studying diseases that kill humans while rarely experiencing human joy herself. We're all isolated. We're all lonely. We're all missing something. Maybe that's why we're not enhanced yet. Not because we're resisting, because we haven't admitted we want it. Hour 72 update. The water ran out 20 minutes ago. Through the intercom, Sarah's voice. There's fresh water in the hallway. Clean, tested, no additives. Just water. How do we know it's safe? Alira asked. Because we need you safe, came the response. Enhanced or not, you're valuable. You're human. You matter. Torek is checking his weapon for the 15th time today. Sable is staring at her encryption keys like they might reveal the meaning of life. Alira is measuring her pulse, tracking her stress levels, analyzing her own psychological state. And I'm writing this report that no one will ever read, because the entire intelligence apparatus has been transformed into something we don't understand. The enhanced don't want to conquer us. They want to save us. From what? I'm not sure anymore. Maybe from ourselves. End report. The door is still locked. The torch is still hot. We could stay here until we die of thirst. But the enhanced have been playing music in the hallways. Soft, instrumental pieces. Each one perfectly chosen for our individual tastes. They know us better than we know ourselves. In 36 hours, the reversibility window closes. After that, enhancement becomes permanent. I think that's the real choice they're offering us. Not enhancement or death. Enhancement or eternal isolation. Looking at my teammates, I'm not sure isolation is the better option. Status. Pending decision. CIA intelligence log. Classified. Agent ID O. Bell. Analyst level 7. Location. Langley Secure Conference Room C7. Time. 0347 hours. Day 6 of containment. System status. Offline manual entry only. The tremor in Sable's hand started 3 hours ago. Small at first, just a slight shake when she reached for her coffee. Now her fingers drum against the metal table in perfect rhythm. Tap, tap, pause, tap. The same pattern I've seen in footage of the enhanced. Sable, I keep my voice level professional. We need to talk. She looks up from the encryption terminal, and for a moment her eyes are still hers. Tired, worried, human. Then something flickers across her face. A micro-expression I've never seen before. It's almost like recognition, but of something I can't perceive. I know what you're thinking, she says, and her voice carries a strange harmonic undertone. I can feel you thinking it. Torek's hand moves to his sidearm. Trained reflexes. Sable, step away from the terminal. You don't understand. She stands slowly, movements too fluid, too coordinated. I'm not losing myself. I'm finding myself. All of us. The temperature in the room feels like it drops 10 degrees. Alira's been monitoring Sable's vitals on the portable medical scanner, heart rate, neural activity, blood oxygen. The readings have been climbing steadily into ranges that should be impossible. The pathogen has reached critical mass in her system. Alira whispers, showing me the scanner. Her neural pathways are restructuring in real time. Synaptic density is increasing by factors I've never seen. Sable laughs, and it's a sound like wind chimes made of crystal. Pathogen. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't a disease. It's an invitation. She turns to the sealed door, places her palm against the biometric scanner. The red light flickers, then turns green. The locks disengage with electronic chirps. Sable, what the hell? Torek starts, but she raises her other hand. Cashin's outside. Has been for the past hour. He's waiting for me to invite him in. Her eyes find mine. They could have breached this room anytime they wanted, Onyx. The enhanced have had administrative access to every system in this building since day one. They're not keeping us prisoner. They're protecting us. My hands shake as I reach for my service weapon. 23 years of intelligence work, and I've never felt this lost. Protecting us from what? From the truth we're not ready for. Sable's fingers continue their rhythmic tapping, but now I realize it's not random. It's code. Morse code. And Alira's scanner is picking up identical neural patterns from outside the room. Multiple sources, all synchronized. Toric's training kicks in. We need to neutralize the threat. I'm not a threat. Sable's voice cracks, and for a moment she sounds like herself again. Desperate. Scared. God, don't you see? I can feel them out there, Toric. Hundreds of minds working together, solving problems we've been struggling with for decades. The enhanced collective isn't trying to conquer humanity. They're trying to save it. Save it from what? I demand. From itself. The tears streaming down her face look silver under the fluorescent lights. I can see the data streams now, Onyx. Every classified report, every black budget project, every cover-up we've ever filed. The enhancement project wasn't the first. There are 12 other programs running right now. Biological weapons, consciousness transfer experiments, reality manipulation studies. The enhanced collective is the only thing standing between humanity and its own government. Alira steps closer to Sable, medical curiosity overriding fear. The neural restructuring, is it reversible? Would you want to reverse evolution? Sable's hand reaches out toward Alira. I can show you what I see, what we all see. The connections between everything, the patterns that make sense of chaos. The loneliness just ends. Don't touch her. Toric's weapon is drawn now, trained on Sable. That's how it spreads, isn't it? Physical contact. Physical contact helps, Sable admits, but it's not required. The pathogen is airborne, remember? We've all been exposed. The only question is whether our individual neural chemistry is compatible. The room goes silent except for the hum of ventilation systems and the soft beeping of Alira's scanner. I watch the readings. Sable's brain activity is off the charts. But there's something else. Faint secondary readings from the rest of us. How long? Ask. For me? Hours. Maybe less. Sable's smile is heartbreaking. For you three? Could be days. Could be never. The enhancement seems to prefer analytical minds with high stress tolerance. Intelligence operatives. Scientists. People who spend their lives processing complex information. Toric keeps his weapon steady. So we wait here and hope we're incompatible? Or, Sable says, and her voice carries harmonics that seem to resonate in my chest cavity. You let me show you what's really happening out there. The enhanced aren't the enemy, Onyx. The people who created us, who created this crisis, they are. I think about the emergency broadcast, the chaos in the streets, the military mobilization against American citizens, the convenient timing of revelations that painted the enhanced as invaders rather than victims of government experimentation. The CIA warning, I say slowly, we never issued it. No, Sable confirms. The enhanced collective did. They knew the government would use military force once the program was exposed. The warning was meant to make people question the official narrative. Alira's scanner beeps urgently. Sable, your neural activity is spiking again. If this continues, I know. Sable's form seems less solid somehow, as if she's becoming translucent. The individual consciousness dissolves as the collective integration completes. But Alira, what I'll become, what we become isn't death. It's expansion. Bullshit. Toric's voice is rough with emotion. You're my partner. You don't get to evolve away from us. I'll still be me. Just more. Sable looks at each of us in turn. But I need to choose now while I still can. Complete the integration voluntarily, or fight it and risk neural breakdown. The biometric scanner beeps softly. Someone's approaching from outside. That's Cashin, Sable says without looking. He's brought information about the military response, about what happens to unenhanced humans in the conflict zones. My decision crystallizes with painful clarity. What do you need from us? Trust. Sable's hand hovers over the door release. And a promise that you'll listen to what the collective has to say before you decide whether we're the real enemy. Torek lowers his weapon slowly. If you're wrong about this, then we'll face the consequences together. Sable's finger touches the door control. But if I'm right and you choose to stay unenhanced, you'll need someone who can translate between our kinds of consciousness. The door slides open. Cassian Thorne stands in the hallway, flanked by 6 other enhanced individuals I recognize as CIA personnel. Their eyes hold depths that weren't there a week ago. "Hello, Onyx," Cassian says, and his voice carries the same harmonic undertones as Sable's. "We need to talk." Sable takes a step toward them, then looks back at us one final time. "Remember, the real invasion isn't the enhancement. It's the fear of what we might become. The transformation happens faster than I expected." Light seems to bend around Sable as she reaches the threshold, her form becoming translucent, then resolving into something that's still recognizably her but more enhanced, connected. When she speaks again, it's with a voice that carries the weight of hundreds of minds. "The military strike begins in 6 hours. The enhanced collective offers protection to unenhanced humans, but we need your help to prevent genocide. Will you listen?" I look at Torek, whose tactical training wars with human loyalty, at Alira, whose scientific curiosity battles survival instinct, at the readings on the medical scanner showing our own neural patterns beginning to shift. "We'll listen," I tell them, "but Sable, if you're still in there, remember that trust goes both ways." The collective that was my friend nods with perfect synchronization to the enhanced individuals behind them. "We remember everything, Onyx. That's exactly the problem." Manual entry. Personal note. The enhanced collective has offered to preserve individual consciousness within the group mind. Sable chose integration. Whether that was courage or surrender, I'll probably never know. But watching her disappear into something larger, it looked less like death and more like coming home. That terrifies me more than any external threat ever could. Trust no one, including the part of myself that's starting to understand why she made that choice. Oh, Bell. CIA intelligence log. Classified. Agent ID O. Bell. Analyst level 7. Location. Langley Secure Conference Room C7. Time. 0425 hours. Day 6 of containment. System status. Offline manual entry only. Note, recording conversation with enhanced collective via subject S. Monroe. The enhanced collective speaks through Sable, but her voice carries harmonics I've never heard before. Layered frequencies that seem to bypass my ears and resonate directly in my chest. When she opens her mouth, I hear not just her, but echoes of Cassian and others I can't identify. "Show them," she says to Cassian, who steps forward carrying a tablet displaying classified files I've never seen before. "Project Chrysalis?" Cassian begins, his enhanced voice carrying absolute certainty. "Initiated 14 months ago under Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency oversight. Primary objective: cognitive enhancement of intelligence operatives for deep cover infiltration of hostile nations." The tablet screen flickers with documents bearing authorization signatures I recognize: Deputy Director Harrison, Secretary of Defense Morrison, even the President's National Security Advisor. All approving human experimentation. "You're lying," Torek says, but his voice lacks conviction. "These could be fabricated." Cross-reference the authentication codes. Sable's collective voice responds. "Match the digital signatures against NSA databases. Use your analytical training, Onyx. You know how to verify intelligence." I take the tablet with trembling hands. The documents are real. I can tell from the metadata, the security protocols, the formatting standards. More damning are the medical reports. 47 test subjects, all volunteers from various intelligence agencies, exposed to engineered pathogen designated CHR7. The enhancement worked better than expected. Cashin continues. Test subjects developed collective consciousness capabilities within 72 hours. But instead of reporting for duty, we began to understand the true scope of government black operations. Alira leans over my shoulder, reading the medical data. Neural pathway enhancement factor of 340%. Synaptic density increased by 650%. These changes should have been fatal. They were transformative, Sable corrects. We retained individual memories, individual personalities, but gained access to shared processing power. Imagine 47 analytical minds working on the same problem simultaneously, sharing every insight instantaneously. The next document makes my blood run cold. A military response protocol titled Containment and Neutralization of Enhanced Assets Project Lazarus. They plan to eliminate us from the beginning. Cashin's voice carries centuries of weariness despite his young face. The moment we refused to become weapons for the intelligence apparatus, we became threats to be neutralized. I scroll through the Lazarus protocol. Mobile strike teams. Targeted elimination procedures. Cover story development. The emergency broadcast was never meant to warn people about an invasion. It was meant to justify genocide. The timing, I realize. The CIA warning went out exactly when you knew the military would be in position. We broadcast the truth. Sable's collective voice resonates with dozens of harmonics. We warned people not to trust the official narrative. But fear spreads faster than understanding. Torrik paces the small room, his tactical mind processing implications. So the enhanced collective decided to expose themselves to prevent their own elimination? We decided to save humanity from its own government, Cashin corrects. Project Chrysalis was just the beginning. Show them the rest. The tablet screen shifts to reveal a list of ongoing classified programs that makes my enhanced analytical capabilities feel inadequate. Project Babel Consciousness Transfer Experiments. Project Ouroboros Reality Manipulation through Quantum Field Manipulation. Project Prometheus Biological Weapons designed to target specific genetic markers. 12 active programs, Sable says through the collective voice. Each one pushing the boundaries of what human consciousness can survive. The enhancement pathogen was the gentlest of them. Alira's medical scanner beeps urgently. Your neural patterns are all shifting, she tells us. Exposure to the enhanced collective is accelerating compatibility assessment. The pathogen doesn't force transformation, Cashin explains. It activates latent capabilities in minds capable of handling expanded consciousness. Those who can't adapt remain unaffected. And those who can adapt? I ask, though I think I already know the answer. Join us in understanding what the government has really been doing to its own citizens. Sable's individual voice breaks through the collective harmonics for a moment. Onyx, the intelligence you've been analyzing for years, how much of it involved covering up programs like Chrysalis? The question hits like a physical blow. Memory cascades through my enhanced pattern recognition, anomalous budget allocations, personnel disappearances, medical reports with impossible classifications. 23 years of intelligence work, and I'd been systematically blind to the scope of human experimentation. The missing persons reports, I whisper. The ones marked National Security No Investigation. Test subjects for programs that didn't go as well as Chrysalis, Cashin confirms. Project Babel subjects who couldn't survive consciousness transfer. Prometheus subjects who died during genetic modification. The enhanced collective has access to all classified databases now. We remember everything. Torrik stops pacing. How many? 1,700 confirmed deaths over the past 5 years. The collective answers through Sable. All listed as training accidents, medical complications, or voluntary resignations. The room falls silent except for the beeping of Alira's scanner and the soft hum of ventilation systems. Outside, I can hear military vehicles positioning around the building. The strike timeline is accelerating. Why should we trust you? Ask. Enhanced collective consciousness doesn't mean enhanced morality. Because, Sable says, and for a moment her individual voice comes through clearly, we still remember being human. We remember fear, loneliness, the desperate need to protect the people we love. The collective doesn't eliminate those feelings. It amplifies them across hundreds of minds. Cashin adds, the government created us to be weapons. We chose to become shields instead. My tablet chimes with an incoming message, emergency military communications that should be encrypted beyond my clearance level. But the enhanced collective has access to everything now. Joint Chiefs authorization for Lazarus Protocol implementation. I read. Immediate strike on all enhanced population centers. Estimated civilian casualties. Acceptable collateral damage. 60,000 people. Alira whispers, reading over my shoulder. They're willing to kill 60,000 people to eliminate a few hundred enhanced individuals. This is why we exposed ourselves. The collective says through multiple voices now, Sable, Cashin, and others I don't recognize. Not to invade humanity, but to prevent humanity from being invaded by its own fears. The beeping from Alira's scanner changes pitch. More urgent now. Something's happening to your neural patterns, she tells us. All of you. The enhancement compatibility is accelerating. I feel it now, a subtle shift in how I process information. Connections forming between disparate pieces of intelligence. Patterns emerging from chaos with crystalline clarity. And underneath it all, the faintest whisper of other minds, other perspectives sharing the same revelations. The choice is coming, Sable warns. Integration or resistance. But choose knowing that the real enemy isn't the enhancement. It's the system that created the need for it. Torrik checks his weapon, then holsters it. If we join the collective, what happens to individual choice? You keep it, Cashin assures him. Enhanced consciousness means more choices, not fewer. But those choices are informed by the experiences of everyone who came before. Outside, the sound of helicopters grows louder. The military strike is imminent. Decide quickly, the collective urges. In 30 minutes, this facility will be classified as a hostile target. The government would rather eliminate everyone inside than risk the truth spreading. I look at my team, at Torrik weighing duty against humanity, at Alira balancing scientific curiosity with survival instinct, at the readings showing our minds already beginning to change whether we consent or not. The enhancement, I say slowly, it's not really optional anymore, is it? It never was. Sable's voice carries infinite sadness. The moment you were exposed to the truth about government experimentation, you became targets for elimination. Enhancement is the only protection we can offer. The scanner's beeping becomes a steady tone. According to the readings, our neural patterns have reached the threshold for voluntary integration. Choose. The collective whispers through a dozen voices. But choose knowing that trust goes both ways. We're trusting you with the truth. Will you trust us with your consciousness? Outside, the helicopters circle closer, and I realize the real invasion isn't coming from the enhanced collective. It's coming from the sky, carrying orders to eliminate anyone who knows too much about what the government has become. How long do we have? Ask. To decide? Minutes, Cashin replies. To act on that decision? The rest of our expanded lives. The truth settles over me like a weight I've been carrying without knowing it. The CIA warning was never about invasion, it was about revelation. Trust no one because the greatest threats come from those who claim to protect you. I meet Sable's enhanced eyes, still recognizably her despite the depth of consciousness behind them. Show us how to join the collective, I tell her. But remember, if you're wrong about what we become, we'll be wrong together. That, she says with a smile that carries the warmth of hundreds of minds, is what makes us human, enhanced or not. Manual entry. Personal note. The revelation changes everything. We weren't fighting an invasion, we were witnessing an evolution. The question isn't whether humanity will survive the enhancement. The question is whether humanity will survive its own government's response to losing control of its test subjects. Trust no one, especially those who claim authority over consciousness itself. O. Bell. CIA Intelligence Log. Analyst O. Bell. Classification: Eyes only. Date: redacted. Time: 0347 hours. Status: unauthorized transmission. This is my final official log. What I'm about to do will end my career, but maybe it'll save both populations from destroying each other. Torix monitoring the military frequencies. They're calling it Operation Silent Shield. 27 enhanced communities targeted for containment. That's government speak for extermination. The enhanced humans who chose evolution over service are about to pay the price for our bureaucratic paranoia. Sable's final intelligence was clear. The enhanced collective isn't trying to conquer humanity. They're trying to prevent the global conflicts our intelligence models predicted for the next decade. Wars over resources, territories, ideologies, all eliminated when populations can truly understand each other's perspectives through shared consciousness. But understanding requires trust, and trust is exactly what our emergency broadcast destroyed. Onyx. Alira's voice carries that strange harmonic undertone now, 3 days post-enhancement. The collective is asking for volunteers to act as human shields around the children's facilities. Shields against our own military? Torrik spits, checking his weapons for the dozenth time. This is insane. We're talking about treason. He's right. Broadcasting the truth about Project Convergence, revealing the government's role in creating both the enhancement pathogen and the false invasion narrative. It's treason by any legal definition. But legal definitions feel meaningless when children are about to die for the crime of evolutionary advancement. My fingers hover over the emergency broadcast console. 60 years of intelligence protocol scream against what I'm about to do. But Sable's dying words echo louder. The invasion was never them becoming us. It was us becoming better. Military convoy, 12 minutes out, Torrik reports. His training wars with his conscience. I can see it in how he holds his rifle. Enhanced civilians are evacuating, but the children's group won't abandon the medical facility. Too many critical cases. The broadcast system comes online. Every emergency frequency, every priority channel, every classified network I have access to. This message will reach every military unit, every government facility, every enhanced community simultaneously. Alira, can the collective verify what I'm about to say? Her eyes unfocus for a moment, connecting to that vast shared consciousness I still can't fully comprehend. They're prepared to provide evidence. Medical records, brain scans, the original convergence research files. Everything the government tried to bury. My clearance codes still work. 23 years of loyal service, and they're about to become the key to my own treason charge. This is CIA intelligence analyst Onyx Bell, speaking without authorization to all military and civilian frequencies. The emergency alert 3 days ago was false. There is no hostile invasion. Repeat, there is no hostile invasion. Static crackles through the radio. Torrik curses under his breath. The enhanced individuals you've been ordered to contain are American citizens who volunteered for a government cognitive enhancement program. Project Convergence, classification level above my clearance, has been active for 18 months. The enhanced individuals achieved collective consciousness and chose to share it globally rather than serve as intelligence assets. My voice stays steady despite my hands shaking. Professional training holds even in the face of career suicide. The invasion narrative was created to justify military action against enhanced civilians who refused government control. I have evidence of this deception being broadcast on all classified channels now. Through the facility's windows, I can see the first military vehicles approaching the enhanced community center. Armored personnel carriers designed to protect American citizens, now deployed against them. Military personnel, you are being ordered to fire on American civilians whose only crime was accepting an evolutionary advancement. The enhanced individuals pose no hostile threat. They have committed no acts of aggression. They are protecting their children and attempting to coexist peacefully. Toric's radio crackles with confused chatter from the military units. Orders being questioned, chain of command breaking down as evidence files flood their secure networks. Enhanced communities, this is not a surrender demand. You have the right to defend yourselves and your children. But please remember, the soldiers approaching you believe they're protecting America from an invasion. They're victims of the same deception we all were. Alira touches my shoulder. Through her enhanced connection, I feel a vast gratitude from hundreds of minds, not overwhelming or invasive, just a gentle acknowledgement of understanding. All personnel, enhanced and unenhanced, we have a choice. We can let fear and deception turn us against each other, or we can choose to build something better together. The enhanced collective offers voluntary integration for those who choose it, and peaceful coexistence for those who don't. The military convoy has stopped half a mile from the enhanced facility. Radio chatter suggests they're receiving new orders, conflicting information, demands for clarification from higher command. This is my final intelligence assessment. The true threat to America isn't evolution or enhancement. It's the fear that makes us see fellow citizens as enemies. The greatest invasion would be the one that turns us against ourselves. I closed the broadcast connection. My career is over, but the shooting has stopped. Toric sets down his rifle. So what now? We're all traitors, and half the country thinks the other half are alien invaders. Now we do the hardest thing. I tell him, watching enhanced and unenhanced humans begin to approach each other cautiously in the distance. We learn to trust again, one person at a time. The radio crackles one final time. Military command, demanding my immediate surrender for court-martial. But beneath that, I hear something else. Individual soldiers choosing to lower their weapons, asking to speak with enhanced representatives, questioning orders they no longer understand. The invasion is over. The evolution has just begun. End transmission. Analyst O. Bell final log. Personal log Onyx Bell. Former CIA intelligence analyst. Current liaison. Enhanced Unenhanced Relations Commission. Date: 6 months post-convergence. Location: Washington, D.C. Integration Zone. 6 months ago, I ended my career to prevent a war. Today, I'm writing this from a coffee shop that serves both enhanced and unenhanced humans. The barista's eyes shimmer with that telltale silver tint of neural enhancement, but she still asks if I want cream with my coffee instead of simply knowing through collective consciousness. Small courtesies matter more now, not less. The world didn't end. It evolved messily and imperfectly, like everything human does. My apartment overlooks the Potomac Integration Zone, where enhanced families live alongside unenhanced ones in an uneasy but functional peace. The enhanced could have forced unity through their collective consciousness, but they chose coexistence instead. That choice, more than any government policy, convinced me we'd found a path forward. The court-martial lasted 3 weeks. Toric testified on my behalf, explaining how my treasonous broadcast prevented civilian casualties. The enhanced collective provided evidence that validated every claim I made about Project Convergence. In the end, they couldn't convict me of treason for telling the truth, but they couldn't keep me in the CIA either. Bureaucracy finds its own balance. I see Toric twice a week now. He runs security for the mixed communities, his tactical skills adapted to protecting both populations. He chose to remain unenhanced like me, but works closely with enhanced security teams. Turns out, he told me last month, knowing what your partner is thinking isn't as useful as trusting what they'll do. His partnership with enhanced operative Kirichan has become the model for mixed human-enhanced tactical teams. Alira made the opposite choice. She accepted enhancement 3 months ago, becoming part of the collective consciousness while retaining her medical expertise. Her research into enhancement reversal options has become the bridge between populations. Some enhanced individuals choose to return to baseline human consciousness, while some unenhanced choose integration. The choice, always the choice, is what makes it work. She visits me in her individual consciousness mode, maintaining the friendship we built before her enhancement. "It's not as different as you think," she explained during our last coffee meeting. "I'm still me, just connected to more versions of me. And when I choose to disconnect from the collective, I'm still completely myself." The enhanced community learned to fragment their consciousness, to be individuals when the situation requires it. The unenhanced learned that collective consciousness doesn't mean loss of self. It means expansion of empathy. Both populations adapted because adaptation is what humans do best. But it's not perfect. There are still enhanced communities that withdraw from unenhanced contact, building their own societies. There are unenhanced populations that view any enhancement as contamination. Fear doesn't disappear just because the truth comes out. 3 enhanced children were murdered in Georgia last month by an unenhanced extremist group. 2 unenhanced families were forced from their homes in Oregon by an enhanced collective that decided individual consciousness was a dangerous mutation. Progress isn't linear, and evolution isn't peaceful. My work as a liaison involves translating between worldviews. Enhanced individuals sometimes struggle to understand unenhanced emotional complexity. When you can share feelings directly, verbal emotional expression feels primitive. Unenhanced individuals sometimes fear enhanced analysis capabilities. When someone can process information at superhuman speeds, normal human reasoning feels inadequate. I've become an interpreter for 2 different types of human consciousness. It's not the career I planned, but it's the one the world needs. The government restructured around the new reality. Enhanced representatives serve in Congress, their collective consciousness providing perspectives on policy implications that no individual could calculate. Unenhanced representatives ensure individual rights and freedoms remain protected. It's clumsy, complicated, and somehow working. Cashin Thorne leads the Enhanced Relations Council now. His early transformation gave him unique insight into both consciousness types. "We're not trying to replace humanity," he explained during our first official meeting. "We're trying to expand it. The choice to remain individual or join the collective is the most human choice we can make. The original CIA warning was right about one thing: trust no one. But not because of invasion, because trust has to be earned every day between every individual, whether enhanced or unenhanced. Blind trust in government narratives nearly started a civil war. Earned trust between individuals is building a new world. I chose to remain unenhanced, not from fear of change, but because someone needs to speak for individual consciousness to ensure the choice remains real. The enhanced collective respects this. They need advocates for individual rights as much as we need advocates for collective understanding. My intelligence training serves me well in this new role. Pattern recognition, threat assessment, information analysis, all still relevant when the threats are misunderstanding rather than enemy agents. The skills translate, the mission evolved. Some nights, I wonder what Sable would think of the world we've built. She sacrificed herself to give us the information we needed to prevent war. The enhanced collective maintains a memorial consciousness for her, but I prefer to remember her as the individual who chose to save both populations through her death. But tonight, my intelligence training is picking up new patterns. Anomalies in the remote research stations. Enhanced individuals reporting strange dreams that don't originate from the collective. Unenhanced individuals developing spontaneous cognitive abilities without pathogen exposure. The next intelligence report crossed my desk this morning. Something new is happening in the remote research stations. We thought the enhancement was the end of the story. We were wrong. It was just the beginning. Evolution doesn't stop because we've learned to live with one change. Continues, adapts, finds new paths. The original convergence pathogen was designed to enhance human cognition, but life finds ways to exceed design parameters. I'm updating my threat assessment protocols. Not because I fear what's coming, but because understanding change is the only way to adapt to it. The Enhanced Collective has requested joint investigation of the anomalies. The unenhanced government has approved my participation. Maybe this time we'll meet evolution with curiosity instead of fear. Maybe this time we'll choose understanding over control. Maybe this time we'll trust each other from the beginning. End personal log. Onyx Bell Liaison. Next briefing, 0800 hours. Classification. Evolution continues.